Peace and blessings, and welcome to Catholic Crossroads, a Black Catholic's journey, where we discuss topics from a Black Catholic's perspective pertaining to spiritual and social issues that is happening locally, nationally, and globally. My name is Gardis Watts.
Hi, and I'm Tina Carter.
And we are part of the Chicago Black Catholics Alliance, an organization that works to collaborate with other Black Catholics in Chicago and the Chicagoland area. This month, we will discuss education. As the school year is in its first stages, we'll talk about the current situation of education with our children and with the young people in higher education. We'll also recap the sunrise service that took place on the morning of August 23rd at 39th Street Beach. We will also discuss the two-day revival that took place at St. Moses the Black on the evening of August 25th and 26th, with the theme of Hope Does Not Disappoint. Tina and I were able to go to both of these events, and we just want to give our take on it. Okay. So as we start talking about education. So the thing about education is, we always say that it's a pathway to liberation.
Yep.
It's something that we as a society say we value, but in essence, it seems like education may be not as valuable as we think because of the fact that we don't spend as much money on education as other countries. We see the test scores of most of our children in this country are lower than some of the test scores of other children's in the world.
Yep.
But yet, we harp on our children about education. But do we really value their education?
I don't know. I think that once upon a time we did, and certainly for some people in this country, certainly for some immigrants, for example, they do value the importance of education, and they do value the importance of a strong education, and they utilize all of the resources that they have in order to maintain that and to gain it. However, I think that for some of us, not all of us by no means, but for some of us, we've become very muted when it comes to our education. Some of that has to do with the cost of education. Some of it has to do with, for a number of families, they're simply in survival mode. And the other thing is that there is a lack of support on a number of levels as to what our education should look like. The education in our city, for example, is very diverse, and not necessarily in a good way. Some communities that have the financial backing and the resources, you can tell that the schools are well maintained, they're taken care of. The teachers are pretty good, versus schools in more poorly funded neighborhoods. You're lucky if you can keep a teacher for more than 5 years.
Yeah, so looking at it from a racial perspective, we see even decades after Brown versus Board of Education, schools are still segregated. Because of the fact that the system kind of defaults them into segregation. Because now, with public schools, you have to go to basically the district that, you live in. And as with housing, that is totally segregated. And when your schools are in these particular neighborhoods, they don't get funded as much.
Yeah, I can certainly attest to that. Yeah. I mean, I've, as a public librarian, I've seen this, especially during my years when I worked as a children's librarian. You could be one house outside of a particular district at that point, and you was not getting into that school. It was strictly enforced back then. But one of the things that I noticed was that when there was a number of school closures in the city, this was like 2011, 2012 in that area, those district lines and boundaries had to be relaxed in order to accommodate the students that were dispossessed from their schools actually closing. The result that I saw was that the education of that school dropped. And part of the reason why it dropped was because now they have to accommodate more students. They have to accommodate students that might have issues and problems that they weren't used to, they weren't equipped to deal with. And the funding wasn't necessarily there. Principals had to make tough decisions. And you saw this kind of push and pull, this back and forth. And so there has been this push to have things like charter school education, which is very popular. And this notion of having the funding follow the student rather than the school district. What I've noticed is that when that happens is, as you're pulling money from a public school system, and then the kids and their families might have a choice to where to go, for those kids that are in more depressed areas, that choice is radically limited, and now they also have even less resources than before.
Yeah. So you brought up something interesting about charter schools. And there's kind of a mixed bag on charter schools.
Yes.
There's some people who support it, some people who think that it's useless, and there are some people who think that it's a detriment to the public school system.
Yeah.
And we know in recent history, and I'm just saying recent history compared to the years public school has been in, because I think charter schools started popping up in the early 90s, I believe.
Yeah.
And this was supposed to be the alternative to the inefficient education that quote unquote public schools were giving our children.
Right. But
there have been reports that said that the charter schools have not really moved the needle, further to keep this particular system going, but it's still going.
Right.
Because you may have some, like some anomalies that, there were a few charter schools that have been successful.
Oh, yeah.
But the majority of charter schools, from statistics and reports, have either closed because they failed to educate the children. And the thing about charter schools is they fall under somewhat different rules
Right.
than the neighborhood public schools.
Right.
Because for one, with charter schools, they don't necessarily have to hire union teachers.
Right.
Even though there are some charter schools that are unionizing.
Yeah.
But that's not a requirement for a charter school.
Right.
So we see the charter school system or the charter school model come in, and it's making changes into the public school education, because
Right.
one of the things that a lot of legacy schools are having is low enrollment.
Right.
Because nowadays you can file for a charter and have your school in an office, somewhere around here.
True.
And people would probably put their children in those particular charter schools just so they can avoid, going to the local neighborhood school.
Right.
And the one thing I have seen, being in education, is the low numbers of the neighborhood schools that our schools are having. So, for instance, in my old high school, I remember I came into a freshman class of nearly 700 people.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously the school had at least about 1,500 students.
Right.
My same school, from my understanding, because I know a teacher that works there, they're not even hitting the 1,000 student mark
For the entire school.
for the entire school. They're not even hitting the 1,000. So, but this low enrollment is not just in my old high school. It's like all across the board. And then also too, one last thing, teachers. There's a teacher shortage.
Very much so.
There's a teacher shortage. The district I used to work at, they have 10 schools. They literally had 42 open teacher positions when the school year started. Even though they have kind of like their enrollment numbers have been decreasing as well,
Right.
as far as children. However, it has ticked up a little bit with the immigrant children coming up.
Right.
But when I first started working there were roughly over 3,000 children in the 10 school district that I worked at.
Okay.
When I left there was barely 2,200.
Wow.
So, but they're still short of teachers.
Yeah, and I mean, the numbers there's a couple of reasons for that, I think. The first thing is, in terms of just low enrollment in general, part of it is that folks ain't having as many babies as they used to.
Yeah.
That's part of it. The other thing too is the phenomenon of homeschooling. You're finding more and more families opting to homeschool, and the Chicago Public Schools and others have created mechanisms for that. At one of the libraries that I worked at, we actually had a homeschool group that would come in and meet. I think there was like weekly or monthly or something. So a lot of families are finding different ways to educate their children, not the traditional way, and not necessarily with parochial schools or charter schools or specialty schools. They are opting to homeschool. And the thing about homeschooling, and that has its plus and minuses too. So the plus is that it's not as structured as such, but students still have to take tests and that sort of thing to pass to the next grade. And depending on your circle of homeschoolers, you still have to create space and time for children to have that socialization that they would get in school.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're homeschooling, it might look a little different.
Yeah, and we have to clarify that, because I think when people think of homeschooling, they think of the traditional homeschooling where one parent is teaching the child. You mentioned groupings, because
Right.
now the new thing is homeschool grouping.
Right.
Whereas there are different parents who would take on the role of educating a group of children, like in their circle or community, one time or several times a week, because people still got to work.
Right.
And as you know, most of our children are in, single parent households.
Right.
So, you can't have the one parent just educating the child and not bring any money home. 'Cause
Right.
even if you are on public aid, it probably still won't be enough. So the thing is that there are homeschool groupings that are taking place.
Right.
And I think this may be a way of probably having a more liberating education for our children, because as you see now with the public school system, a lot of things are being restricted.
Yeah.
Because what they're doing is, and especially with 47 in the office, he's
DT.
he's tying the purse strings up if you decide to teach that old what do they call what does he call it?
Critical race
Yeah,
theory?
critical race theory which ain't being taught in schools anyway.
Yeah.
But people have to be, like school systems have to be careful, and he's still pulling the money from public education to certain areas where where children that look like us go to.
Other things, yeah.
So that is happening, and then we go to higher education where he's having these 47 is having these fights with Ivy League schools, including Harvard. I think that's more of a personal thing than anything. I think they might have turned down his application years ago, and he might have a beef with them. But you even see in the higher education system how a lot of public funding is being pulled, and you see some of these universities basically capitulating to the White House because they want that funding.
Yeah, and so and the thing about education is that education should not only be free and available, but you should be educating, not indoctrinating. And part of education means that you're going to get different viewpoints. You're going to have the ability to look at facts, to look at things from different perspectives, from different aspects, so then you can have a well-rounded understanding of what's going on. And this goes true for math, science, history, social studies, the whole gamut of things. And when we then take this education and we put our rose-colored spin on it, we're not only doing a disservice to our children, but we're doing a disservice to our society because we're making them dumber and foolish.
Yeah.
On top of that, the other sad reality when it comes to education, and another reason why, for example, some parents are opting to homeschool their kids, is that simply it's safer. We just recently heard about what happened in Minneapolis with a group of students who were having their school mass of the year, the first one of the year, and a gunman decided to shoot up the church, killing 2 children
and injuring several,
and injuring, I believe it was 17.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the thing that really struck me about that is one of the young men that they interviewed said that, well, we practiced what to do when we were in school. We didn't get a chance to practice while we was at church. As if that this was normal. Now, when I was growing up, the normal thing for us was tornado drills.
And then in the 80s, it was nuclear bomb drills.
Yeah, it was nuclear bomb drills and tornado drills, but because of the proliferation of guns, where every man, woman, child, dog, cat, and mouse has at least 3 guns each in this country, we now have to worry about someone who might be in a particularly dark moment in their life taking out a bunch of people along with themselves. And this is yet another reason why some parents are like, no, you know what? It's a sacrifice, but I'm willing to teach my children at home. Who else is with me?
Yeah, and also I think the main issue is the political violence that we allow in this country. And we allow, certain ideologies that use political violence as a first measure of getting their point across, as a way of allowing it to fester like this, because school shootings have been happening for years, and we still haven't gotten down to the root cause of it. Most of it is political violence. Some of it is actually mental violence that a child might be having, and then next thing you know, they just snap out because mental health is unimportant to us in most respects. So that's part of the education that our children are not getting. When you think about education, wholly educating the entire person, not just the mental, but the emotional,
mind, body, and
spirit. And the spirit, that education is not being there because we're so worried about test scores. And test scores are important, but it's not the end all be all. There's a lot of children out there who are academically great, but as people, they're horrible. And the problem too is that when we educate our highly intellectual children, and when they grow up and get these jobs like doctors and lawyers, do they come back to their own neighborhoods and serve the people at one point or another? No, because they've been indoctrinated to say, hey, you need to get out of there so you can move out into the swanky suburbs and forget about, those folks that brought you up. And so part of that education is, hey, we want you to come back and help the community. But the problem is the community doesn't really take the education of our children seriously, and they feel like they have to go out on their own to strike it big in this world. So if the community was to raise this child to get this education, they would help them out, and the child will come back and say, hey, you know what? They helped pay for my education. They sent me care packages when I was in college. I need to go back and help them out. That's part of the education that our community actually needs.
That's true. But one thing that I will say is that education ultimately begins at home. And because education ultimately begins at home, it starts with the family. It starts with making sure that the family has resources that they need to make sure that their children are properly educated, mind, body, and spirit. One of the greatest things for me is, as a librarian, and for the longest I didn't consider myself as an educator, but I've been...
You are an educator.
Yeah, I'm an educator. But one of the greatest joys for me, and this happened to me twice this summer, was seeing kids that I remember reading to when they were young children, 4 years old in the case of one, 8 in the case of the other. And they came back, and one is a teacher. The other one is going to college, trying to figure things out for himself. And through my interactions with them, that I was just simply doing what I was doing. But through my interactions with them, they appreciate that, they remember it, and they are now paying it forward. And so when it takes a village, really, it takes a village to truly educate and raise a child. And when we get back to the village, then I think our kids will be better for it. This whole idea of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and I'm going to get mine, and this dog-eat-dog world that we have in our society is killing our society.
Because we have no realization of reality. When you don't have any boots, you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. When you trying to get yours, you ain't got none.
So then what do? You sit there and you try to take from that person that you was told that has. We have to get away from that. It's killing us. It's killing our society. And so when we look at education, education is multi-layered. Education is not only from the family, education is from who you interact with in your community, from the librarian. And yes, I have to plug, make sure that you get a library card. Mm-hmm. To the church that you go to, or the synagogue that you go to, or the mosque that you go to the school that you go to the interactions with your family and friends. All of that is feeding into your education to make you who you are.
Yes, and I would suggest to people, go to these school board meetings, see what they're talking about, because most of it ain't about educating the children. And I know school boards have to run a business as well, because a business component is part of public education. But see who is running these school boards, mm-hmm. because that right there could also be a way to kind of like for the community to grab a hold of education, because, you know, like you said, most of the time this individualistic mentality of our children growing up in this individualistic society is killing us.
Yeah.
And going into, killing. Chicago has have an issue of violence, for years. And 15 years ago, the Black Deacons of Chicago,
yes,
started the sunrise service,
yes,
in praying over the victims of Chicago violence, but also too praying that the violence stops. So
right.
We were able to attend this year's sunrise service at 39th Street Beach on the morning of August 23rd.
Yes.
So just tell me what you thought.
Well, I thought that it was actually beautiful. I always like seeing the deacons and the priests in their vestments as they process in, because they process in from near the rocks that goes down towards the beach. And it's almost like God's army coming in to pray with the flock, pray for the flock, to do spiritual battle. And the spiritual battle that we're dealing with right now is violence, is gun violence. Chicago is no stranger to gun violence. And while the numbers have gone down, there is still way too much work that needs to be done. One life lost is way too many. This past Labor Day weekend, I believe we lost 8. Mm-hmm. So, but it is a reminder that we as a prayerful people, we as a hopeful people, still have lots of work to do. And it's more than just thoughts and prayers. Mm-hmm. It is finding ways to engage, mm-hmm. finding ways to have that conversation with that young man or young woman who is about to go over a cliff. It is finding things that can redirect, finding ways to de-escalate. Because a lot of time, the reason why this happens is because so many people are so heated, and the first thing they do is they sit up there and they go for the gun. Mm-hmm. The other most important thing that we have to be reminded of is that we really have to do something about the gun laws in this country. While Chicago has some more of the stricter gun laws, The states around Chicago don't. And because of that, you have a number of people that do go across state lines and get guns illegally. So we have to really think about what is that meaningful thing of hope. What does that mean? Do we truly believe that all life is precious? Or is it only precious until until we can commodify that life? The speaker was actually one of the founders, Deacon Leroy Gill. What did you think of his sermon?
No, I mean, Deacon Gill has always been a great homilist and, has always done good sermons. I wanted to give my perspective of it because, as a person who, I don't go every year, but I've gone a number of years. Well, what I find interesting, and don't get me wrong, I want this to be known is not just criticism for criticism, but criticism in love, because I remember when this event first started taking place, there were a lot of grassroots organizations that were involved in this. I haven't seen that lately. That ties into the service, because there were always groups from Ceasefire and different grassroots organizations that are doing the work trying to stop the violence. But it seems like that I don't see that marriage anymore. And maybe they are supporting it, but I would like to have their presence in those particular services.
Okay.
Somebody from those organizations coming to speak, saying, "Hey, we're doing this, come support us. Hey, we're doing that, come support us." And I didn't really see that in this year's service or the year before. And it seems like it's kind of like going away from that. And I would like for that to return. I would like for these organizations who are on the ground preventing, trying to prevent the violence, to come participate in our service, to come participate in that. But, like I said, it's not just a criticism. I think it's a necessary factor. I think we do need these prayer service, but I think it needs to go back to its roots. It needs to go back to the core of when this started. We had a lot of organizations participating in this,
right?
And I think we need to go back to that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I mean that's certainly fair. I think that, and this is something that we can definitely look into, is that because it could be that there are some things that are happening, but we just don't necessarily see it. And a lot of it is, quite frankly, just advertising. A lot of it is making sure that all key players have a front row seat, at the table. And also, too, that we all make sure that, because I think that we're all trying to get to the same thing. It's just that there might be different ways of coming at it. Like one thing that I did notice, and maybe it was because it was the 15th year, was that I know that this was certainly true for last year and years that I've also attended, that the sisters would come and they would read the names of all of the victims from the previous year.
Yeah. So it's more, it's not just advertising. It's like we as the participants, we want to help. We just don't want to pray over this stuff. We want to pray and do action.
Yes.
So that's the whole thing. See, we think as Christians, all we need to do is just pray and it'll go away.
Prayer without works is dead.
Exactly. Frederick Douglass also said, he prayed for his freedom, but until he started praying with his feet, he got his freedom.
Right.
So yes, prayer, faith without works is dead. And I think as a community, if we are going to do this, we need to start more than just praying. Prayer is part of it. However, the action comes after the prayer because God needs to use us as instruments to bring his justice, to our community. So obviously, there's if there is a disconnect, we need to make that connection again
Right.
with this sunrise service. So also too, when we're talking about prayer, we're talking about hope and
Right.
hope that does not disappoint. So we talk about the recent revival that happened at St. Moses the Black, which
Right.
I attended the first night, you attended the second night,
Yes.
and it was with the revivalist was Deacon Houston from New Orleans,
Right.
from St. Peter Claver Church,
Right.
the most popular Black Catholic church in New Orleans, which I call it, my church home in New Orleans. So shout out to the St. Peter Claver people there. But I thought it was pretty good. I think Deacon Houston,
He brought it.
He brought it, and I've heard Deacon Houston when I was at the IBCS, and been to church there and heard him. And he's a very great preacher, very great speaker. But I think he brought home the message of hope being that first stage of work, because of the fact that if you don't have hope, then what is it to work for?
Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, and it very much reminded me of those old time revivals under the tent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, tent revival.
Yeah, very much so. And as cars are going back and forth, there's the music that's playing. The music ministry there is phenomenal. And the idea that even after those wonderful words from the deacon, that we were able to pray over each other.
Mm-hmm.
And in a sense, I think that we all got our marching orders.
Oh yeah, yeah. Because I know before this, me and Tina talked about how we were called up to pray over the people, because we originally thought that it was just the ministers that was in charge of this, and so Tina got dragged up by Father Matt. I was dragged up by Dr. Mark Nemo, telling me, yeah, we're gonna put that degree to work.
Right.
and you know what? It was fine. I loved it. I appreciated it. I always enjoy, being an instrument to God's healing. I'm not the healer. God is the one that provides the healing. I am just the conduit to the healing.
Absolutely.
So when I think about that, I am being used for God's work, to do this healing. So
I think we all are,
yeah,
in a very real sense. I mean, and the work that we do, the work that we continue to do, the ministries that we are involved in, a lot of it is saying yes to what God has called us to do. Mm-hmm. And taking that first step on the leap of faith, and knowing that even though you don't see the ground below you, you don't see it there, it's there. You just have to trust. You just have to trust in God's and what God has planned for you, what God has in store for you, which was very much the overarching theme of both the sunrise prayer service and the revival. And even though we seem to be in dark times in this country, we will persevere. All of us will. A lot of it is that we just cannot give into despair. God has a plan.
Indeed.
And we just have to trust what that plan is and make sure that we do our part of the plan. We are all soldiers for Christ.
Indeed. Shout out to the ministers at St. Moses the Black for the great revival.
Yes.
That ends our show for the month. As I always ask every month to please hit the like button on this video, subscribe to our YouTube page, and comments. We love comments. We love the interaction. Puts us in the algorithms. So anticipate more videos from the Chicago Black Catholics Alliance. We also have social media. We have Facebook. We have Twitter or X.
Yeah.
And so we encourage you to like those pages, subscribe, and also, like I said, interact on our social media platforms as well. We also have an electronic publication called The Pulse of Black Catholic Chicago, which we will put in the description of this video. You can shoot us an email, chicagoblackcatholics@gmail.com, if you want to be a subscriber to it. We've been posting this publication for 3 years now, right?
It's been 3 years.
It's been 3 years. So we encourage you to keep subscribe to it, get the updates from what's going on around the Chicago Black Catholic community and possibly around the nation, because we do more than just connect with Chicago Black Catholics in this city. We do connect with a lot of Black Catholics around the nation and across the world. So, and that's it for our show. Tina, you want to close us out in prayer?
Yes, and this prayer is for all of us that are in uncertain times, for all of us who are fearful of what can come next in our government and our world and our nation. And so may the Lord bless you and keep you. May his light shine upon you and bring us all peace today and every day. I ask all this in my Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.